Welcome to another First Five. Today we find ourselves in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 14. And I'm just going to go ahead and read the story. And so just put yourself in the story and do your best to just experience the feelings that might have been in this moment. So Mark 14, starting in verse 43, says, "Just as he was speaking, Judas, one of the 12, appeared. With him was a crowd armed with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priests, the teachers of the law, and the elders. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal with them. 'The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him and lead him away under guard.' Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, 'Rabbi,' and kissed him. Then men seized and arrested him. Then one of those standing near drew his sword and struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. 'Am I leading a rebellion,' said Jesus, 'that you have come out with swords and clubs to capture me? Every day I was with you, teaching in the temple courts, and you did not arrest me, but the scriptures must be fulfilled.' Then everyone deserted him and fled. A young man wearing nothing but a linen garment was following Jesus. When they seized him, he fled naked, leaving his garment behind." This is a very dark moment in the story of Jesus. Dark purely because it would have been sad. It would have been frustrating. It would have been disappointing. One of Jesus' closest followers, Judas, is the one who comes and betrays him and gives him away to the chief priest so that he can be taken away, arrested, and eventually crucified. But Jesus knows this is supposed to happen, which is why he says what he says, and he says the scriptures must be fulfilled, even though he was frustrated with the tactic of, "You came out in the middle of the night with weapons as if I was going to resist, but I've been in your presence this whole time." Now, if you know something about me, or you've met me, or you've had a good conversation with me much, you know that often I find things humorous in inappropriate places. And often I find the Bible to be very entertaining and often humorous. And so because of that, there is a part of this story right at the very end that I find interesting, and it catches me every time. And it is this, that after everyone had deserted him and fled, it says, a young man wearing nothing but a linen garment was following Jesus. When they seized him, he fled naked, leaving his garment behind. That whole experience is kind of funny to me in thought process. First of all, he's wearing very little to begin with, and then when Jesus is arrested, he just runs away naked. And it's just left in here, and Mark is the only one that finds this detail important. It's interesting to me that in the shortest gospel, he includes such an odd detail. Because it is kind of funny that in this moment, we have a streaker through the garden. But maybe there's a reason for that. And I noticed this because I thought it was kind of entertaining and kind of funny, but then as I did research, I found that it's actually really hard to pinpoint a reason for why this was included. And through a couple commentaries, the best reason I thought of is that maybe this symbolizes us. Maybe this symbolizes the shame that was felt by those following Jesus. Think about if you were in that situation. You're one of the close followers of Jesus, one of those who was allowed into this intimate moment, and instead of fighting for Jesus, instead of really standing up for him, when push come to shove, you ran. You felt so much shame that you actually left your clothing behind. And I think many of us relate to this man. Not in the fact that we would go streaking through a public garden, but what we might do is run when things get difficult. And in a moment like this, when Jesus is arrested, Jesus is doing what actually he came here to do. Instead of standing by his side, we run in shame. Because what Jesus has asked us to do, what Jesus has called us to do, what Jesus has called us to stand up for, has become very difficult, so we run. Instead, we should stand firm with Jesus. And maybe this explanation is actually not that great. Maybe it doesn't mean something to you. But I think there's a reason Mark included this. And even though we don't know what that reason is, maybe this is just an encouragement that we're not so unrelatable after all. When we feel shame and when we mess up, those closest to Jesus also messed up. But the question is, will you come back? We don't know what happened to this man, but will your story be that when you mess up and feel shame and run, will you come back to Jesus in the end? I hope this was helpful, and we'll see you later for another First 5.